on your seat. We're going to begin with a little bit of breathing, which is necessary for this particular meditation. So if you just close your eyes. If you have gotten settled in your posture, with your head, neck, and trunk aligned, it's really important as much as you can to have your spine in a natural, aligned, and erect position, because this has a lot to do with the energy that's moving, that we're going to be kind of exploring and playing with. So, eyes closed, check your posture. If you feel that you find any areas that are tight or tense, be sure and allow that tension to melt away. Especially your shoulders. Let them float around your spinal column. Find an alignment between the lower tip of the spine. That's the coccyx, which you want to just lift a little bit upward, back and up. And your rib cage, which you want to lift a bit up and forward. And then the back of the top of your head, which is called the vertex of the skull, should be pointing upward, straight up. And while in this position, palms, best to have your hands on your knees with your palms up. And allowing your shoulders to relax. Good. Now, once all that alignment has taken place, you can begin to turn your attention to the breath. And by that, I mean just be aware of your breath. You may think, well, yeah, I'm inhaling and I'm exhaling. What am I supposed to be aware of? There are many dimensions and subtleties to the breath to bring into awareness. The rate, the rhythm, the continuity, where meditation is very helpful to not interrupt the flow of the breath. That is to say, not stop between inhalation and exhalation, or more commonly between exhalation and inhalation. That interruption of the flow of the breath is quite disruptive to your cardiovascular system as well as to your consciousness. So, bringing your full attention to the breath. Now we're going to start with a little bit of tracing the flow of energy up the spine. So as you inhale, and many of you have done this before, you're going to let your attention sweep up the spine from the lower tip of the spine up to the crown of the head. As you inhale, timing it so that by the time you reach the top of the head with that sweep of attention, you are completing the inhalation. So inhaling with a sweep of the attention upward, and then exhaling back down, winding up at the lower tip of the spine at the end of exhalation. Just do that for a few breaths. You get the hang of it. Now we're going to add to that another exercise that we've done before, where we focusing on the exhalation, we slow the exhalation down so that we're exhaling less air, a little bit at a time, tapering that so that at the end of exhalation, the body takes over and inhales. So you might think of it as, I'm exhaling, my body is spontaneously inhaling when it's ready. So I keep the exhalation going as long as I can, just a slightly exhaling, until the inhalation pops into occurrence. So As you exhale back down the spine, gradually, a little bit at a time, and at some point, your body says, I need air, and it inhales. And you allow that inhalation to happen as fully as it wishes. Inhaling upward, and then slowly exhaling until the inhalation takes over. And when the inhalation takes over, allow it, follow, go with it up the spine to the crown of the head. And then exhaling slowly back down. And just stay with that for a few more breaths. And you may notice a bit of elation, a bit of lifting of your spirits when the inhalation takes over. Important that you don't impede or obstruct that spontaneous inhalation, allowing it full reign. And remembering, as we do this, remembering that our inquiry tonight and last week and tonight is, why am I here? What am I here for? What am I here to do? Why am I here? Right now we're here to feel the delight of the inhalation of the spontaneous, what we call spanda, taking over our body and bringing in energy and life and vitality. So you get a whiff of that vitality. When the inhalation happens and fills you with aliveness. So this is a connection within us to our spanda, our spontaneity, our life force, the delight of that aliveness that we embody here on the earth. Why am I here? Am I here to experience this aliveness, this vitality, this joie de vivre? Swami Rama said, yes, that's what we're here for. But we also have an outer life, not just the inner process, but we have our moving through the world when we're not meditating. So we have this question, why am I here? And we think it's primarily about where do I move through the world? How do I move through the world? What am I moving toward? But when you sit for meditation, you can get in touch with this delight in being alive, the delight you experience in being in a living, breathing body on earth. Then if you wish, you can bring that out with you into the outer life when you're not meditating. In fact, Swami Rama used to talk about meditation in action, meaning, can I bring my meditation into my daily activities, into my process of moving through life in the external world. So how do we do that? Exhaling slowly and letting the inhalation take over. If I were in my meditative state as I walked through the world, which is a tricky thing to do, but if I were, if I am, I get to a crossroads. Do I go to the right or to the left? And at that moment that inhalation takes over, where is the spontaneous impulse? To the right or to the left? Oh, I think it's to the left. So I go with that. I'm harnessing my meditation in the outer world. Yeah. It feels like the left is the correct direction to go. So I take that road to the left. That spontaneity, that inward breath, that inspiration can guide us. Why did you go that way? I was inspired. There's more meaning in many of our words than we realize. To be inspired is to be spontaneous, to follow Spanda, to let the aliveness, the inward breath and the aliveness move us, guide us through life in the outer world. Why am I here? Well, I'm not sure, but after I've traveled that way for a while, I look back and I say, oh, look where I am. Look where I've come to. That must have been why I'm here. It's not an intellectual decision. Just imagining at this point, because we're just sitting, imagining how an inward breath could move you toward making this choice or that choice. Why did you do that? I don't know. It was just spontaneous. Like my whole life could be spontaneous movements, inspired movements. Could I complete my life feeling fulfilled? Hmm. Where does the spontaneity come from? Hmm. Maybe it's the same place I come from. Maybe this is who I truly am. Hmm. Follow your inspiration. Hmm. So continue for a little while now, playing with breath, slow exhalation, gradual exhalation, gradual until this inhalation takes over. And just imagine yourself moving through the world, propelled by that feeling of spontaneity, that spanda. Mm. What would my life be like if I did it this way? Following my inspiration. Hmm. Why am I here? Could the answer be as simple as to experience this? To experience moving through the world, guided by spontaneity and the wise men say Tantra is really about play. And in India, they say the world is the yogi's playground. And what is play but spontaneity? Mm. So now we're going to begin to let our attention flow down to the heart center and rest there. Letting your attention settle at the heart center. Mm. Notice how that feels. Now we're going to expand our awareness from the heart center out to include the arms, the right, the left, the legs, the torso, and the crown of the head. All these appendages, but remaining anchored at the heart center. And now I'm beginning to become aware of the surface of your body. Move your fingers a little, your head a little, your toes a little. Yeah. And when you're ready, you can bring your hands to cover your eyes if you wish. Palms over your eyes. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and let your gaze stay fixed on your palms as they float down to your lap. And then gradually emerging from meditation. Taking a few moments to stretch a little. Give your legs, if they're folded up, some attention, massage. So take your time to come back into your body and into the everyday world, or at least your surroundings of the moment. And we have time for some questions or comments or sharing about what that experience was like with you, for you. That's always a gift to others. Yes. Can't see names.
This is Jody.
Oh, Jody. You must be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Can you unmute yourself?
Nope.
Battery 90%.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. That was a really interesting experience for me because I found that I actually couldn't exhale long enough. Like I was squeezing my entire abdominal cavity, like all the muscles in my ribs, like I was wringing everything out, and I just felt like I could keep going and going and going, but like I couldn't physically exhale anymore. So, I allowed the inhale to come, and it was relatively spontaneous. So I started sounding with the exhalation to kind of allow kind of just a trickle of just tiny, tiny particles of air to continue the exhalation. And that helped a little bit. And then even with that, I got to a point where I felt like I could just continue to exhale, but like physically my body couldn't wring itself out anymore. And I'm curious, in this exploration, you talked about how the inhalation is representing the spontaneity. I'm wondering if the exhalation is representing the tapas, and if maybe you can say a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you for that question. Absolutely, these are kind of primal examples of tapas and spanda. And for those who are not familiar with those terms, tapas is our ability to contain, hold and contain, rather than, it's not actually a counter to spontaneity, but a support for spontaneity. And these are the primal qualities or aspects of Shiva and Shakti, representing Shiva representing the right hand side and Shakti the left hand side of the body and of the nervous system and so forth, and all the ways in which they function, that one of the primary characteristics of Shiva is this containment, this tapas. He's very famous for tapas. And the spontaneity is an aspect of her, and that is the we might say the life force, the élan vital, the that throb, that life tendency of living things to move, or all things really to vibrate, is Spanda. And so, philosophically in the tantric tradition, these are talked about in very abstract ways, but we can also talk about them in very concrete, experiential ways, which is what we were doing in the meditation. Thank you. Does that help, Jody?
That's perfect. I'm just curious if you can say, with the tapas, does it somehow help if you're like getting more and more and more disciplined and more and more and more tighter? Like I'm just curious, like what the correlation is to like squeezing everything out to allow the spontaneity to come in.
Yeah. Well, that's not really the best way to do it. So the best way to do it is to start from the beginning of the exhalation, so that you're only exhaling a little bit at the very beginning, so that then the exhalation can just continue for a very long time. And maybe for you that won't happen, but for most people, after 30 seconds, 45 seconds, inhalation begins. And it's just an exercise, it's just a practice to try to get experientially in touch with this concept of spanda, spontaneity, because otherwise it's too abstract. So, there are other ways to explore it too. Does that help? Yeah, okay. Good. Who else has a question or sharing or both or?
Swami, this is Shiv. I have a question. The question is related to the purpose of why am I here?
Yes.
And the spontaneity part of it, the spanda part of it.
Yes. Well, so why do those go together?
Yes, exactly. So what is the, yeah.
Yeah, well, because, when we think about from this tradition, this spiritual tradition of Tantra in the Indic cultures, we think about spontaneity, we think about Spanda, we think about her, we think about Shakti, we think about this life force. Where is it coming from? So the answer, of course, is it's coming from out of the oneness, out of the spring of that all life emerges from. And so that is our the spanda that characterizes me, is that piece of the oneness that is getting expressed. And so if I wonder, well, why am I here and what am I here for? Well, that should be my connection to the source, to the oneness, to the that is coming through to express through me if I allow it. Now, we have to qualify that sometimes that can be obscured by habits, that we have all these habits that may take us in a different direction, that are so ingrained that we think it's spontaneity, but it's not. So the spontaneity we're talking about is a kind of cleaned up spontaneity. You know, we've removed all the habits that we have discovered through our experience that we have discovered that don't really seem to express our essence, that don't really seem to connect us to the oneness, because we tried it and it didn't feel like that at all. So we go, oh, this must not really be Spanda, this must be some habits that come from my lifetime experience or from my family or from wherever that I need to examine and let go. So, but if we do that work and we sort of clean up the inner world that way, then that spontaneity becomes something that's reliable and that is profound. You know, they say that the keynote, the kind of central premise of Tantra is play. Well, that's not just because, that's not to say that, well, the tantrikas aren't really doing anything important. They're just kind of messing around and killing time. No, it means that they are in touch with their spontaneity, and their play is an expression of the divine. And so that's, does that help in terms of how they fit together?
Yeah, but so if you have to apply this to your daily routine in life, I mean, if you're operating in a materialistic world, you're essentially repeating the same behavior over and over again. There is no spontaneity, in fact, in your life.
Right. Yeah, that's a faux spontaneity, false spontaneity. If it, I mean, if you want to, it's not really spontaneity. And that is the great obstacle, because people say, well, this is what I want to do. This is my spontaneous thing, is to, my sort of trite example is to, it's bedtime. I'm going to go get my ice cream out of the freezer. That's spontaneous. Well, but you did it every day for the last 6 years. I don't think that's spontaneity. It's just a habit, you know.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. Very important question. Anyone else have something they'd like to share or explore or
This is David Salee. I can share something. I found this meditation really profound. It really deepened the practice, my meditation practice. For a while, with the meditations you've been guiding us through, I've been practicing getting out of the way of the breath as much as I can, allowing my muscles to relax, my back to relax, my Ida and my Pingala to relax as much as possible, just to allow it through, to get out of the way of the breath. And so I was integrating that into this meditation. And when you took it into, maybe this is why we are here, it's just this whole kind of, it became three-dimensional or something, like holographic. I really got how this is, I could look at it like this is practice for my whole life, like this meditative practice for my whole life, to get out of the way of Spanda and let myself experience the Spanda and let the Spanda move through me more as freely as possible. And one of the ways, so one of the ways I see that does show up is in my music. As a musician, as I'm writing music, that my whole approach to writing music has completely changed. And it's really been about me setting aside all the ways that I know how to write music and the way that music should be formulated, so to speak, and just setting those aside and letting it come through, which has been really an exciting and challenging experience and slow experience for me. And I can see how, on a certain level, for me, that really rings true, that is, on some level, that's why I'm here, is to let the Spanda move through me as freely as possible.
Right, beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So somebody wants to ask the question, so what happens if it's not really Spanda? And what if I go out into the world and I do some stupid thing that isn't Spanda, and then I'm getting into all kinds of trouble? Who had that question? Nobody? Oh, well, maybe he's not here tonight. But that's the question that arises. And so the answer to that question is that even as we are looking for our Spanda, we're searching, we're exploring the possibility of expressing Spanda. It's not always perfect, and habits do get mixed in, and there are things that the world won't quite understand. So then we realize that, okay, this is an experiment, because everything's an experiment, right? That's one of the principles of Tantra as we teach it. So everything's an experiment. So I'm doing the experiment of allowing Spanda to express, but something else may happen. And so that's my opportunity to gather data about part of the experiment, is to do the experiment and then gather the data that emerges. And the data is, well, that was a disaster. And then I can begin to tease out, well, what was the habit that got in there to contaminate my Spanda? And then I can begin to deal with that and examine that habit and begin to release that habit. So, you know, this does not invalidate the principle. It just means that, you know, we're not going to get there perfectly the first time, or the second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth. But it's a noble experiment, and it will lead you into freedom or kind of liberation. Isn't that? I mean, this. Yeah, you can disagree with me if you want, but I'm asking you, isn't that what we all want, really, is to be able to be fully spontaneous and it be exactly the right thing at every minute, every moment? Isn't that what we really want from life? Well, you know, let's get started. You know, take a shot at it. And then if it doesn't work out so well, then gather the data from that and then keep going. Because it is our birthright to do that. And we can do that. And it's delightful. And that's what the yogis the really advanced yogis and tantrikas are here for, is to show us, like, see, it can be done. So thank you for joining me in that wonderful experiment of playing with breath and Spanda. And And thank you for being here this evening. And next week, we will be talking about the third part of this series, which is, where am I going? And that's going to be fun. So I'll turn this over to Gerald. Okay.
So we hope you'll not break a habit and join us next week. So, yeah, this was wonderful, wonderful chat, wonderful meditation. Next week, 7 p.m. So if you would, unmute, and we'll all say good night. Thank you for joining us, especially all those folks that are new to us tonight. Appreciate you finding us and sharing your evening with us. So come back.
Yes.
Night.
Good night, all.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Arabella.